Hello dear soulmates and fashion lover, you're welcome to Sew with Effie. In this tutorial, I will be teaching the step-by-step process on how to draft a simple basic bodice. And by the time you're done with this video, you will be able to draft a simple basic bodice. You would also have gotten the idea on how to get a perfect neckline, and also you would know how to remove that excess fabric at the back. Zipper tightening, you would know how to do your zipper tightening, the perfect measurements, the accurate measurements needed for your zipper tight. You know, there are sometimes you make a dress and there is this bulge at the back of the dress, this excess fabric puffing out at the back of your dress. Yeah, when you're done watching this video, you'll be able to know how to take off that excess. Or even if you're using freehand, you would also know how to go about it in order to avoid that. And also, by the time you're done watching this video, you would know the perfect way to tighten your skirt for the knee tightening. You would know how many inches and how to go about your knee tightening if you're making a straight skirt, a pencil skirt, and all of that. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I urge you to do so. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell because I'll be uploading new videos weekly. And you can also connect with me on other social media platforms. I am So with Effie on all platforms. So without wasting much time, let's dive into the video. So this is the measurement we are using for this particular pattern. The bust is 38, the waist is 30, the hip is 40, the shoulder is 15, then shoulder to waist measurement is 17, the back length is 15, the waist to hip is 9, and waist to knee is 23. We would have more measurements as the video proceeds. So the first thing I would like to do is to tape the four edges of my pattern to the table so that it's not shaking while I'm drafting. Then the next you have to do is to draw your margin. I'm using 0.5. Yeah, I'm just going to draw the margin at the right side and up of the paper, on top the paper. Yeah, at the up side and at the right side. I'm going to leave the other side and down of the paper. After doing that, I'm going to divide my pattern paper into two. I would be using my bust divided by 4 plus 3 inches just to get the width that will be enough for me to draft my pattern. You could use the biggest size, the biggest circumference of your part of your measurements, which is the hip, but I'll just be using the bust because I know it's going to be enough. So my bust divided by 4 plus 3 is giving me 12.5. So I'm just going to take 12.5 all the way down and connect with a straight ruler. I'm dividing this pattern paper into two because I'll be drafting for the front and the back. So after getting that 12.5 on this side, I'm going to do the same thing at the other side. 12.5, 12.5, take it all the way down and connect it with a straight ruler. After doing that, the next thing is to decide where you want to be the front and the back. So I'll be using this first side as my front and the other side as my back. So I'm going to label accordingly. So this side where the margin line is the center front. So I would write CF, and the other side is the side front. I would write SF and label it as front and back. Then you can see the other places. I have SB, that is side back. The two sides are always to be together. That is to show you that your pattern is correct. SF and SB should be together, while the last side here is the center back. So now we're going to go ahead to look for the armhole depths. And to get the armhole depth, you divide your bust by 6 plus 2.5. So that is what I'm placing right now. Bust is 38 divided by 6 plus 2.5. It gave me 8.8. So I'm going to place it all the way, both at the front and at the back, and connect the lines together. So the next thing, yeah, I'm going to label it as chest line. That's your armhole depth. It's called your chest line, CL chest line. So the next thing now is to get the shoulder measurement. That is shoulder divided by 2, 7.5. I'm going to draw it and connect the line across it like this. So that's how to get your armhole depth and your shoulder. So next, I'm sorry guys, I didn't know my camera was not covering that part properly, but I later adjusted it, so please bear with me. You're going to see it very shortly. So For the neckline, I'm using 3.3. I'm using 3 by 3. That is 3 inches for the depth and 3 inches for the width. Then I'll go in on the shoulder by 1.5 and connect it to the neckline. And now we move to the back. All your back measurements should start from the CB. That's the center back. It should not start from the SB. Just the way the front measurement started from the CF, all the back measurement should start from the CB as well. So now we're going to input our shoulder measurement, which is 7.5. Then, for the front, we use 3 inches for the width and 3 inches for the depth. For the back, we're going to use the same 3 inches for the width so that the neck can connect. But at the depth, we are using 1 inch because it's a basic neckline, and we connect it with the curve ruler, the down part. You see the way I connected it. And now we are going to go in on the shoulder line by 1.25. At the front, we used 1.5. At the back, we're using 1.25 and connect it to the neck point. Okay, so now that we've plotted our neckline, let's go ahead to continue the rest of the measurements. We need our shoulder to bust point, which is 10. Yeah, I just included it to the measurement list now. Shoulder to bust point is 10 for this particular pattern. And our shoulder to waist is 17. Shoulder to waistline is 17. Then at the back, shoulder to waistline at the back, which is the back length, is 15 inches. So we're going to do that and connect the lines together and label accordingly. Always remember to label. So we'll label this as bust point B, waistline, and back length or waist. So moving on, we would impute our measurements for the lower bodice, and our waist to hip is 9 inches. That's what I'm marking. And also waist to the knee length is 23. Mark that and connect. Go to the back piece and also mark our waist to hip, which is 9, and waist to knee as 23, and connect together. After connecting, then would label. Don't always forget to label hip, knee length, that is KL, knee length, and yeah, the waist. So now we're going to take our round measurements. Always remember, measurements start from the CF for the front and CB for the back. So we're going to input our bust measurements now. Bust is 38 divided by 4, that is 9.5. Then we're adding 0.25 for ease. Yeah, we're adding 0.25 for ease. That's going to give us 9.5 plus 0.25 is equal to 9.75. If you need a video on how to read tape, like tape reading, just drop it in the comment section, okay? And I'll make one for you. So that's 9.75. We'll measure it both at the front and at the back. Remember, measurements start from CB and CF. So after doing that, here goes the tricky part, how to plot the perfect armhole. You go up for the front. This is the front piece. You go up from your chest line by 3 inches. Then that part that you went up by, you come in by 0.5. Use a straight ruler and connect it to your shoulder points like this. Then after that, you take your curve ruler and connect it to that your bust measurement. Make sure it does not have a sharp edge. Make sure it hits that bust measurement and it comes back to it this place that you went in by 0.5 in a very demure manner. Then for the back, you divide the whole of that your shoulder measurement minus the 1.25 that you use for the slant. You divide it by 2. You see the way I placed my tape. Divide it by 2, then go in by 0.5 also. Link it, connect it to the shoulder points and use your curve ruler to curve it back to meet the bust measurement. That's on the chest line. Can you see it? So watch it again, put it on, backward it and watch it again if you did not get it. So now moving on to the waist. We're dividing our waist by 4 also. That is 7.5. Then now this pattern is going to have darts, and I want it to have 0.75 on each dart leg. So 0.75 plus 0.75 is going to give us 1.5. That's 1.5. That's what I have there. We are going to use our bust band to get our darts, where to plot the darts. So bust span is 7. We divide 7 by 2, which is 3.5. Then you place the 3.5. Can you see it? So now on each dart, that is 1.5 that we kept for the dart. 1.5 divided by 2, we are going to have 0.75 on each dart leg. If you measure that place now, you see that it's going to give you a total of 1.5. So that is why we added an extra 1.5 to the waist measurements. So the next thing to do now is to connect it to the chest line. You could use a curved ruler like that or a straight ruler depending on what you want. But if you want it to have more fit, okay, let me just do example so you see. You can see that's a straight ruler and this is me using the curved ruler. So it depends on what you want. When you use a curved ruler, it's going to chop off that excess fabric. That's, can you see it? Can you see the difference? It's going to chop off that excess fabric. But if you like it like that, just do what works for you. They both are actually fine. I've tested and tried the two and they're good. So that's that. So now we'll move to our hip measurements, which is hip divided by 4. 40 divided by 4 is 10. Then we're going to add 0.25 as is. So that's going to give us 10.25. So go ahead, can you see it? If you need me to do a tape reading video, please, or a tape reading tutorial, please signify in the comment section, okay? So now we're going to mark 10.25 on the hip line. 10.25. Then you can see if you connect it like this, the hip is going to be too sharp. So in order to avoid that sharpness, you'd go up on the hip line by 2 inches and mark that same hip measurement, which is 10.25 there. Then after doing that, now you can curve. You curve to that upper 2 inches first. After curving to that upper 2 inches, then you go ahead to bring it down to the hip. So that way it's not going to be too sharp. It's just going to give like a very beautiful fit. Moving on to the knee, that same 10.25 that you use for the hip, we're transferring it down to the hip. 10.25, take it all the way down. Then now this, if you want it to just be straight like this, you could leave it, but I want mine to be pencil. I want it to be a pencil gown, so I'm going to go in on that 10.25, that place that I marked. I'm going to go in by 1.5, 1.5 inch. Then I'll connect it straight with a straight ruler to the hip. Can you see it? So it depends on what you want. If you want it to be that straight or this tightening, whichever way you want it, it depends. You can see how it is on the pattern, so you have to decide on what you want. So now let's plot the dart for the front. So we'll be done with the front and move to the back. On that place that we went up on the hip line by 2 inches, we are going to mark, because we can't take the dart directly to the hip. It has to stop above the hip. So we'll mark that same bust span divided by 2, that's 7 divided by 2, which gave us 3.5. We're going to mark it on that hip. Then with the help of our straight ruler, we connect it together. And when sewing your dart to the bust point, ensure it doesn't hit the bust point. You have to go down by 1 inch. Your dart is not supposed to get to your exact bust point. Remember, the front pattern is longer on the waistline than the back with 2 inches. Some might be wondering now that, oh, how do I sew it? How is it going to match? Yeah, in order for it to match, remember that 2 inches. You look at the bust point there, that bust point line. You're going to go down by that 2 inches, depending on how many yours is. Some people one could be 3 inches, while some could be 2 inches. So if it's 3 inches difference, you go down from the bust point line by 2 inches or 3 inches. I went down by 2, then you connect it back to that bust point where the dart is meeting. Can you see? So that way when you're sewing, when you sew the side dart, is going to match with the back piece. Moving on to the back pattern, remember we have to impute our zipper tightening, because that is going to help us to reduce that bulging at the back of our dresses. It's going to give you that fit. So we are using 1 inch for the zipper tightening. It depends. 1 inch is like the perfect measurement to use, but if the person is, so now we would still use 3.5 for our darts to plot our darts. The same 3.5 we used for the front, that is bust span divided by 2. There is no bust at the back, so there is no need for added fullness. We use 0.75 on each dart leg at the front because we needed fullness there. But for the back, we are going to use just 0.5 on each leg. That's 0.5 plus 0.5 is equal to 1 inch. So that 1 inch for the zipper tightening plus 1 inch for the darts. Then the waist divided by 4 is 7.5. When we add all those together, we're going to have 9.5. So now we're going to place 9.5 and mark for the waist. Just ignore the way it's going to the way the waist is looking so wide. By the time you remove, when you're sewing, by the time you remove your darts and by the time you cut out the zipper tightening, you're going to see the fit. So for the hip, we are using the same 10.25, that is hip divided by 4 plus 0.25 is, and we go up by 2 inches, same way we did for the front. Impute the same 10.25 there. Use your curve ruler to curve from the waistline to the chest line, then turn the curve ruler the other way and curve it down to the hip. First stop at that, at the first bus stop. And then you continue all the way. By the time you cut out this pattern and you're done sewing, you're going to see the fit on that waistline. Just ignore the way it's looking now. There's an added 2 inches there. So moving on to the lower part of the pattern, which is the knee. At the front we use 1.5, 1.5 inch for the tightening, but at the back now, because we want to have this extra fullness at the bum, there is a way you curve this bum area, and it will give that your bum a, a very nice shape. So that 1.5 that we use for the front, we are going to split it at the back. So you first mark your hip measurement, that is the 10.25. Then at the CB for the back, you go in by 1 inch, and at this side back at the SB, you go in by 0.5. So that way we splitted the 1.5, as you can see. So you use your straight ruler to connect at the side back to meet the hip line, and at the center back you're going to use your curve ruler to connect. So moving on now to back to the zipper tightening. We left 1 inch there, so you just connect that 1 inch to the neckline for the back and connect it back to hit that upper hip line. That's one I drew with pencil, that 2 inches above the hip. Connect it back to hit it. Then when you're done with that, you see that small little space, that 2 inches space that is remaining there. Just place your curve ruler there and curve it in a very nice way that it won't have sharp edge. Make sure the curves are touching the ruler, then you curve it. So that way when you're done sewing this particular pattern, you're going to love it. I'm just marking out the parts that we're going to cut out. Well, there's one more thing left, which is the darts, the back darts. So going on that upper hip line by 3.5, which is your bust span divided by 2, and going on the chest line for the back by 3.52. So connect the lines and plus your darts. Our darts is 0.5 on each leg for the back. That is 0.5 here, 0.5 there. That is altogether we have 1 inch darts for the back. Now you have to cross check to check if there are any sharp parts. If you find any sharp parts, please do well to correct them by blending them in. This particular pattern can be used to make anything. This is the basic pattern that can be used to make anything: bustier, off shoulder, dress with waist joining, dress without waist joining, anything at all you have to do is to manipulate it. Okay, so when you want to cut this your center front now, because we are cutting it as a basic pattern, you have to relabel it so you don't forget. Unfold, you relabel it to be unfold. Then the back, you cut it 2 times. So, and you also put, because the labeling now is already out, like all the SF and the rest, they're out of the pattern. So you relabel them again so you don't make mistake when you're placing them. You could use it to make skirts also. Just cut it from the waist and place it on your fabric. That's a skirt. You could use it for anything, but don't forget to close that side that. Okay. If you're here to this point, thank you so much for watching. I'm sure you found the video helpful. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and turn on the notification bell. Share the video and also drop your thoughts on the video. If there's any style you'd want me to make a tutorial on, please feel free to comment it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.